Now, picture this. At some point this year, you're likely to find yourself at a family gathering, surrounded by multiple generations. It's a familiar scene: grandparents, parents, cousins, maybe even a new baby in the mix. You sit down, ready to enjoy that home-cooked meal. And just as you're about to take a bite, someone at the table drops a line. "This generation is the worst. They've ruined everything. They're soft." The room falls silent for a moment, the weight of those words hanging in the air. Some nod in agreement, but then a younger cousin across the table fires back. "Excuse me? You boomers destroyed the planet. Look at the mess: plastic, gas, capitalism. That's all on you." And just like that, the family dinner has taken a nosedive. Does this sound familiar? Even if it hasn't happened in your home, you've likely heard similar conversations online or in passing. The blame game between generations seems to be everywhere these days. It makes you wonder, how valid are these arguments? Can we really point fingers at a specific generation for messing things up? Or are we missing something? Let's take a moment to break down the generations, because it can get confusing fast. From 1928 to 1945, we have the silent generation. This group got their name for being conformists, and that's understandable. These were the years of McCarthyism in the US, where fear and paranoia about communism ran rampant. People stayed quiet, trusting the authority of politicians, often without question. Their home life was highly structured. Traditional gender roles were the norm. Men worked, women stayed home. Next came the baby boomers, born between 1946 and 1964. After World War II, there was an explosion of new births, hence the name. We often associate boomers with being out of touch, but this generation wasn't as rigid as they sometimes seem now. They defied their parents in many ways. They embraced music festivals, protested the Vietnam War, and stood up for civil rights. The baby boomers weren't just about conformity. They were also about rebellion and pushing boundaries. Millennials, born between 1981 and 1996, are often labeled as self-centered and entitled. Blame social media, blame the rise of me culture. But studies show millennials are more likely to volunteer than previous generations. They care deeply about the environment, their communities, and they prioritize creativity. As parents, millennials are more open-minded and accepting of their children. Their approach to parenting is less rigid, though some experts debate the long-term effects of this style. Finally, we have Gen Z, born between 1997 and 2010. The first generation to grow up fully immersed in the digital age, constantly connected to each other through screens. From birth, they've had access to a world of information, shaping their worldview in ways previous generations couldn't have imagined. Each generation has faced its share of challenges: wars, pandemics, economic highs and lows, and cultural revolutions. And each one has found its own way to cope, some better than others. But here's something that gets lost in all the finger-pointing. Every generation is more diverse than the one before. Every new group has more education, more rights, and a better quality of life for women and people of color. We're all progressing, step by step. There's also been a massive cultural shift in marriage rates. Fewer people are getting married now than before. With better education, more job opportunities, and increased independence, many no longer feel they need a partner to navigate life's challenges. And that's a huge shift from older generations, where marriage was often seen as essential. When you zoom out far enough, you realize that while the experiences of each generation differ, no one generation has had it easier or harder than the others. Every era comes with its own set of highs and lows. The silent generation had their roaring 20s and the Depression. Baby boomers grew up in post-war affluence, but faced the upheaval of the Vietnam War. Millennials came of age during the tech boom, but entered adulthood amidst financial instability. And we can't forget that today's problems, the ones often attributed to one generation, are the result of countless historical, cultural, and economic factors building up over time. No single group is to blame, and none of us are immune to the pressures of the world we've inherited and shaped. So, the next time you hear that tired old line at a family gathering about how one generation is responsible for everything wrong in the world, pause for a moment. Instead of jumping into the debate, be the person who brings up how each generation has fought its battles, survived its storms, and contributed to the progress we see today. Remind everyone that we're stronger when we focus on what unites us, not what divides us. At the end of the day, we all want to leave the world better than we found it. And that's something every generation can agree on. So, let's stop arguing about who did what and start talking about how we can work together. Because in the end, we're all walking the same path, just at different points in time.